Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It really helps keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into the story. I always thought the worst thing about working in a theme park kitchen was the breakfast rush. You'd think it would be lunch or dinner, right? But no, it's breakfast. When the gates open and thousands of visitors pour in with empty stomachs and high expectations, everyone wants waffles shaped like their favorite cartoon character, or that overpriced breakfast sandwich with a hash brown disc the size of a frisbee. Kids scream, parents glare, and somewhere, someone always spills orange juice into the register. But that morning, that cursed morning, the breakfast rush was nothing compared to what came next. I started my shift at 5:45 a.m. sharp, like always. I'm the sous chef at Whistle Grove Cafe, a bustling little joint tucked inside the east side of Joyland Kingdom, right between the Space Coaster and the Jungle Safari ride. Not a bad gig. I get to wear a custom-embroidered chef's coat, bark orders at new hires, and flip pancakes for celebrities who sometimes sneak in before opening hours. That day, the park was supposed to host a big media event. A full-blown promotional push for the park's latest attraction, the Underworld Spiral Management, was hyped. Signs everywhere. Extra staff called in, fresh deliveries stacked behind the service entrances. We were expected to crank out twice the food in half the time. Everything seemed normal until about 6:15 a.m., when Kyle, our teenage line cook, came back from dumping the kitchen trash behind the building. He was pale, shaking. His lips quivered like he'd seen a ghost. "Dude," he whispered, like he didn't want anyone else to hear. "I think there's something wrong with the delivery guy." I didn't look up from my chopping station. Like what? He drunk or something? Kyle stepped closer, his voice dropping. "No, I mean he's out back, just standing there, not moving. His mouth's open, and I think he's, like, twitching." I frowned. Kyle was always dramatic, but something in his voice made me pause. I wiped my hands, handed my station to Rosa, and stepped outside through the back door. The air was muggy and still. The sun was just rising over the massive LED billboards and cartoon statues lining the skyline. The delivery truck was parked in its usual spot, engine running. And there he was, the driver, standing next to the open truck bay facing the wall. He was trembling. Not violently, just shuddering, like he was freezing despite the humid morning. "Hey, buddy," I called out. "You good?" He didn't respond. I stepped closer, cautious now. The closer I got, the more I noticed how strange he looked. His clothes were dirty, like really dirty, stained all down the front. His head lolled to the side, and his mouth, I stopped in my tracks. His mouth was stretched open, not screaming, just open, slack-jawed, with something dark around the edges. I thought maybe it was grease or food from the delivery crates, but it was too dark for that. Then he moved, not turned, not reacted, just jolted forward like a puppet with its strings yanked. He slammed shoulder first into the wall with a sickening thud and stayed there twitching like he couldn't feel it. That's when I backed up and went inside. I told Rosa to call security. Kyle was still hovering near the fryer, staring at me like he expected an answer. I didn't have one. 10 minutes later, security showed up. And then everything started falling apart. 2 security guys showed up, Dave and Marcus. I knew them both. Friendly, dependable, former military types. The kind of guys who smiled at kids and politely dealt with rowdy guests. They walked past me with their radios already buzzing, heading toward the back door where I'd seen the delivery guy. I started to follow, but Dave raised a hand without turning. "We'll check it out," he said. You just stay inside, yeah?" I didn't argue. I didn't want to go back out there anyway. From the kitchen, I watched through the narrow window in the door as they approached the truck. Dave tapped the guy on the shoulder. Still nothing. Then Marcus circled around the front to get a better angle. And then, suddenly, the man lunged. It happened in a flash. One moment he was just standing there, slack and silent. The next, he barreled into Dave with wild, jerky force, slamming both of them to the pavement. Marcus rushed in, grabbing the guy and pulling him off, but the driver wouldn't stop thrashing. Rosa screamed behind me. I reached for the panic button near the fire suppression system, the one we were told never to touch unless the building was literally on fire. But my hand hovered over it, frozen. More security poured in, more shouting. Then radios started going crazy. I caught fragments. East entrance breach. Reports of guests, biting, no, attacking. We've got injuries in Sector 7. That's when I realized it wasn't just us. Something bigger was happening. Inside the kitchen, everything was unraveling fast. Kyle had locked himself in the walk-in freezer, muttering nonsense to himself through the thick door. Rosa was trying to call her brother, who worked on the west side of the park. Two of the new hires just left, literally dropped their aprons and walked out the front. And I stayed. Because I'd seen enough food burns and broken limbs to know when something real was happening. And this was real in a way I couldn't explain yet. I grabbed the emergency radio off the wall and flipped to the all-staff channel. The static was interrupted by a woman's voice, quivering, desperate. "This is medical. We've got multiple incidents near the Splash Dome. People are turning on each other, like they're not themselves. Security's overwhelmed. We need evacuation orders." Then another voice cut in, urgent, fast. "Shut the gates. Lock the gates now. Keep them from reaching the crowd." But it was too late. The park had already opened its gates. Thousands of people were inside. And I just knew, that something was about to break loose. I turned to Rosa. "We can't stay here. We need to find shelter, somewhere with locks, somewhere secure." She stared at me, pale and shaking. "But what's going on? What are they saying on the radio?" I didn't answer, because I didn't know how to explain what I'd seen. Not yet. Instead, I looked around the kitchen, spotted the industrial meat cleaver on the prep table, and picked it up. Just holding it made me feel slightly better, heavier than a knife, good reach, solid grip. I didn't think I'd need it, but I took it anyway, because something told me that the park we'd known, Joyland, the happiest place on earth, was gone, and the real nightmare was only just beginning. The first screams came not long after the gates opened. You know the kind I mean, not playful shrieks from roller coasters or excited kids yelling for cotton candy. No, these were real raw, guttural. They cut through the noise of the park like a siren through fog. Rosa and I ducked into the service corridor behind the kitchen, dragging Kyle out of the freezer along the way. He was shaking so badly his teeth clacked together, but at least he was moving now. We didn't bother locking the kitchen doors. What good would that do? Whatever this was, it wasn't the kind of thing a bolt could stop. We passed storage rooms, staff-only stairwells, maintenance closets, places I'd walked past 100 times without thinking. Now, each one felt like it could be hiding something just out of sight. Somewhere up ahead, we heard rapid footsteps, then someone slamming into a wall. I gripped the meat cleaver tighter. It was a park manager. I recognized him. Andre, the guy who always gave cheesy motivational speeches during staff meetings. His white dress shirt was ripped open, and his tie was soaked in something dark. His eyes snapped toward us as we rounded the corner. For a moment, I thought he was going to lunge. But he just sagged to his knees and whispered, Don't let them bite you. If they bite," he coughed violently, then fell forward, unmoving. Rosa whimpered and grabbed my arm. We moved past him as fast as we could, our footsteps echoing down the steel corridor. I didn't look back. It was Kyle who suggested the Candy Castle. "Guys," he panted, "the basement level. It's locked from the inside. You need clearance to even get down there. Remember when they used it for training week?" He was right. The Candy Castle was a 3-story pink and white structure near the center of the park. On the surface, it looked like a silly attraction meant for toddlers. Gumdrop doors, licorice columns, a giant animatronic fairy who handed out toy lollipops. But underneath it, that was where the park's design team worked on costume repairs, parade planning, and prop storage. It had its own power grid and reinforced doors. If anything in Joyland was secure, it was that. We made our way through the staff tunnels that crisscrossed beneath the attractions. I could still hear chaos above us. Screams, crashes, distant shouts over radios. One time, the sound of breaking glass made us freeze in place for nearly 2 minutes. The silence after that was worse. As we neared the Candy Castle, I saw something that stopped me cold. On the wall was a smear, long and black-red, dragged from the elevator shaft across the floor. Beside it, a name tag lay face down. I flipped it over with the toe of my shoe. It said, Melody Castle Hostess. I'd known Melody. She used to sneak leftover churros to the kitchen staff when no one was looking. I didn't say anything. Neither did Rosa or Kyle. We descended the stairwell into the basement of the castle, heartbeats hammering in our ears. Every step we took echoed with a sense of finality, like we were going somewhere we might not come back from. When we reached the bottom, the lights flickered once, then steadied. The basement was deserted. Rows of prop racks lined the walls. Clown suits, mascot heads, float pieces draped in fabric. A broken puppet arm stuck out from a cardboard box labeled retirement. It all would have been hilarious under any other circumstances. But now, it looked like a tomb. We found the main door to the prop manager's office. I tried the handle, locked, but I remembered the trick. Swipe card, then press twice on the lower panel. Click. The door opened. Inside, it was dark and cool. Emergency lights cast everything in red. We shut the door behind us, locked it, and for the first time since breakfast, I felt like we could breathe. I slid down the wall and sat on the floor, the cleaver resting on my knee. Kyle curled into a ball beside a stack of cardboard boxes. Rosa paced near the wall, biting her nails. Then the silence hit us like a wave. A silence filled with one single, terrifying truth. We weren't alone down here. The silence didn't last. It started with a soft clink, like something metal brushing against concrete. Rosa froze mid-step. I held my breath. Kyle was curled into the fetal position, eyes wide and unblinking, staring past me into the shadows of the prop room beyond the door. Another sound. A dragging noise, soft but steady. Something being pulled along the floor. I stood slowly, gripping the cleaver so tightly my fingers ached. The prop manager's office had a narrow window that looked into the larger storage area, and through it I could see movement. Just a flicker at first, a shape between the racks. Then, clearer. It was one of the park mascots. Not a person, the suit. It was the old Puffy the Popcorn Pup, one of the original characters before the newer, sleeker mascots took over. Puffy had been retired years ago, stuffed into storage like a forgotten toy. He was bulky, all yellow fuzz and oversized ears. And right now, he was standing in the middle of the storage floor, staring at the window. But there was no actor inside. The head was tilted, sagging to one side. The arms hung loose, but something inside the suit was shifting. I whispered, "Tell me someone's messing with us." No one answered. Then it moved, slowly, jerkily, like whoever was inside didn't know how legs were supposed to work. I grabbed Rosa and backed away from the window. Kyle whimpered something I didn't catch. We had no idea how it got down here. No footsteps, no banging on the door. It was just there. I pressed my ear to the office door, trying to hear beyond the thudding of my own heart. Nothing, just silence. Then click. The door handle twitched. Once, twice. I backed away fast, motioning for the others to stay silent. We hadn't made noise, we hadn't called out. It shouldn't know we were here unless it wasn't acting on sound. Unless it knew. The handle twitched again, then stilled. No banging, no shouting, no warning. Just that awful waiting. 10 full minutes passed, then 20. Eventually, Kyle dozed off. Rosa sat with her back to the filing cabinet, chewing her thumbnail to the quick. I stared at the door, still gripping the cleaver, ears straining for the slightest sound. But nothing came. Around the 30-minute mark, I had to move. Sitting still felt more dangerous than creeping into the unknown. I whispered, "I'm going out there." Rosa shook her head violently. "You're insane." "Maybe," I said. "But if we stay in here and something finds us, we're cornered." I cracked the door open just an inch. No Puffy, no footsteps. The room was lit by a low red glow from the emergency lights, and it looked empty. I stepped out. Everything smelled like mothballs and dust. The prop racks were too tall to see over, and the room was full of shadows, tall, looming ones, cast by costume pieces and float fragments. I moved slowly, careful not to kick any stray parts on the floor. When I reached the center of the room, I stopped. The puffy suit was gone. I didn't see footprints or drag marks, just a faint discoloration on the floor where the suit had been. That's when I heard the sound again. The same dragging noise, but this time it was behind me. I turned slowly. Nothing. Then, from farther back, deep in the storage maze, I heard something else. A voice. High-pitched, childlike. Repeating a phrase over and over in a mechanical jingle. "Let's all play and have some snacks. Puffy Pup will watch your backs." It was a recorded line. I remembered it from an old promo ad they used to play during the holiday parades. But it wasn't plugged in. It wasn't connected to anything. That was when I realized something had put on the suit. And it wasn't playing anymore. I ran. Back through the racks, past old parade floats and dusty banners. I flung open the office door and slammed it behind me. Rosa screamed. Kyle jerked upright, disoriented. "We need to leave," I gasped. "Now." "But you said it was safe down here." Rosa started. It was. I didn't need to say more. Whatever was happening in Joyland, it had reached the basement. And it had found a new face to wear. We didn't waste time. Rosa grabbed a flashlight from one of the emergency kits and Kyle shoved open the back maintenance door. The hallway beyond was dark, except for the red safety bulbs lining the ceiling. Barely enough to see by, but better than staying in that office with whatever used to be inside the puffy suit. We had one goal now. Reach the central command center. It was buried beneath the main plaza, between the animatronic control hub and the security surveillance system. Every department used it during large events like the New Year's light show or the Halloween spook parade. I'd been there once for fire safety training, It had thick doors, a separate ventilation system, and the kind of power backup that could run for days. And it had cameras, radios, maybe even answers. We moved quickly through the staff tunnels, our footsteps muffled on the rubber flooring. The sounds above us were fading. No more screams, no more crashing. But the silence didn't feel like safety. It felt like something had settled, like the park had stopped fighting back. We surfaced in the utility wing near the central plaza. From there, we had to cross through one of the performance zones, right through the Hall of Wonders. Normally, it was filled with music, bubbles, and animatronic puppets telling fairy tales. Now, it looked like a haunted graveyard for broken dreams. The air was thick with the smell of melted plastic and something else, like spoiled syrup. The puppet children lining the hallway were still swaying gently, their mechanisms half stuck in motion. Their glass eyes twitched as we passed. Kyle walked between them like he was in a trance. I didn't blame him, I felt the same. That's when we saw the parade. Not a real parade, no floats, no music, just figures. Dozens of them, stumbling in formation down the far end of the hall, right under the glittering archway where the noon fantasy show usually ended. Guests. Or what used to be guests. Their movements were stiff, robotic, their faces slack, eyes wide and unblinking. Some wore costume pieces, fairy wings, painted hats, even a glowing wand or two. Others were in food court uniforms or vendor aprons, their hands stained with something dark. One man, his name tag said Brady, Snack Zone, had a funnel cake stuck to the side of his head. It moved slightly as he walked. They were following a path like they were drawn to something. I motioned for Rosa and Kyle to duck behind one of the fantasy trees, and we waited. The group passed by slowly, eerily in sync. Not a sound, not a word. Just the soft scuff of shoes on tile. When they were gone, I whispered, "What are they doing?" Kyle stared at them, his voice barely audible. "They're not random. They're heading toward the castle gates." "But why?" Rosa asked. "There's nothing there except—" She stopped, because we all remembered what was beyond the castle gates. The entrance plaza, the trams, the parking structure, the exits. They weren't wandering aimlessly. They were heading out. The thought chilled me to the core. If they reached the exit, if they left the park, what would stop them from spreading whatever this was to the rest of the city? We needed to stop them. But we were just 3 people. No weapons, no plans, no help. Still, we kept moving. We passed through the souvenir tunnels and ducked into the hidden lift beneath the Pixie Cafe. From there, it was only a minute's ride to Central Command. The doors opened to a scene of chaos. Chairs overturned, maps scattered, monitors blinking in and out of static. Someone had been here and left in a hurry. Or maybe they never left at all. I moved to the main terminal, heart pounding. The console was still active. Rosa found a headset. Kyle started flipping through the camera feeds. And then, finally, we heard a voice. A voice over the park's private channel. "This is Officer Tran. If anyone's still alive, head to the ferry dock. Extraction in 90 minutes. That's all we can offer." Then silence. Kyle looked at me. "We have a way out." I nodded slowly. But we all knew getting there wouldn't be easy, especially not with the parade still marching toward the gates. And something worse still hiding in the park's shadows. 90 minutes. That was all the time we had. Officer Tran's message hadn't repeated. Either the signal was lost, or he was already on the move. I stared at the monitor showing the ferry dock. It looked clear, calm even, the faint glimmer of water under moonlight. But between us and that pier was a whole amusement park filled with whatever those things were. And something told me the longer we waited, the less chance we had. I took a map from the wall and spread it on the console. Rosa pointed. "We're here," she said, tapping Central Command. "And the docks are all the way across the park. We'll have to pass by Splash Mountain Madness and through the animal animatronic zone." Kyle groaned. "You know that place is cursed even on a good day." He wasn't wrong. That section of the park had always given me the creeps. Too many robotic eyes, too many lifelike movements. And now, it felt like a trap. But it was our only option. The other routes were blocked, either by parade foot traffic or fire. Literally, fire. One of the camera feeds showed flames rising from the Joyburger Pavilion. Whether it was an accident or a last stand, we'd never know. We armed ourselves with what little we could find. I took a steel flashlight, heavy enough to break something if I had to. Rosa had a utility knife from the first aid box. Kyle found a metal umbrella and called it his sword. We moved fast. Outside, the air had shifted. The lights in the park still glowed, but some flickered violently. Music from different zones overlapped in a surreal mash of sounds. Happy circus tunes tangled with dreamy lullabies. The whole place felt like it was on the edge of collapsing into madness. We entered the animal animatronic zone cautiously. The towering jungle trees, plastic and steel, loomed over us. Mechanical birds chirped weakly. Some were broken, their heads hanging at odd angles. Then, a growl. It was faint at first, then again, closer. A low mechanical snarl that vibrated through the path. One of the animatronic panthers stepped out from the bushes. At least, I thought it was just animatronic, until it looked straight at us. Its eyes were glowing a bright, unnatural yellow. Not the soft LED lights they used in most of the shows. These looked wrong. It twitched once, then again. Then it charged. Rosa screamed. Kyle swung his umbrella with all the force of a drenched noodle. I hit it in the face with the flashlight. Sparks flew. It staggered sideways, giving us just enough time to run. We barreled through the zone, dodging robotic elephants, collapsing vines and twitching lemurs that looked like they wanted to join the hunt. Something had activated them, but not correctly. Their motions were jerky, broken. Like a virus had glitched their instincts and turned them into hunters. When we reached the back gate, Rosa slammed the emergency override. The doors groaned open, and we tumbled out into the open food court plaza. We weren't alone. A group of park staff was huddled near the fountain. Maybe a dozen people. Some were security. Others were costumed cast members with the heads of their suits removed, their faces drenched in sweat and fear. One of them, a girl with glitter still smeared across her cheeks, ran to us. "Where have you been? We've been calling for help for hours." "There's a boat coming," I told her. "Ferry dock, 90 minutes. That changed everything. They mobilized instantly. People started gathering supplies. Snack packs, bottled water, flashlights, and anything that could help. A few of the security team took the lead. And then we heard it. Boom. A sound like thunder rolled across the sky. Fireworks. "What the?" Kyle whispered. They were launching from the Dream Zone tower. The park's finale fireworks system, meant for grand openings and closing nights, was going off, but no one had programmed it. No one had hit the switch. The sky lit up with explosions of red and green, cascading stars, booming crackles. And every single one of those things in the park, they turned toward it. We watched on the plaza's big screen camera feed as the parade of guests stopped marching, like puppets caught mid-pose. Then, all at once, they turned around, drawn back toward the tower. "Someone setting a distraction," Rosa murmured. "Or a trap," I added. It didn't matter, it bought us time. We moved fast, taking back routes where we could, avoided the main bridges, used staff tunnels and garbage chutes. At one point, we crossed over the kiddie train ride tracks and crawled through a play tunnel shaped like a caterpillar. And finally, we saw it, the ferry dock. Fog rolled in from the artificial lake, making the lights blur and dance. A single vessel waited, ramp down, lights on. A shadow stood at the edge, waving. Officer Tran. We ran. No hesitation, no last looks. Only when we were all on board, when the ramp clanged shut behind us, did I look back. The fireworks were still going, but faintly now, fading. And just as we pulled away from the dock, something stepped into view at the shoreline. Not a guest, not a worker. It looked like Puffy, but bigger, taller. Its suit was torn, the fur matted. Something inside was bulging out the seams, and its face, its stitched-on grin, was no longer friendly. It stood there watching us. Not chasing, just watching, as if it remembered me. The ferry pulled away from the dock like it was dragging the entire weight of the park behind it. Nobody spoke. We just stood there, 13 of us now, huddled under flickering deck lights, watching the shoreline vanish behind thick curtains of mist. Every so often, the fireworks would flash one last color into the clouds, like a dying heartbeat. And then it was gone. The light, the sound. Joyland. We thought the worst was behind us. We were wrong. Officer Tran, a square-jawed guy with a chipped badge and an arm in a makeshift sling, guided the boat slowly through the lake. He didn't say much, just nodded to me when I asked how far we were from the evacuation point. "About 30 minutes. We'll be fine as long as we don't make too much noise." I looked around at the others. Some were already sitting, eyes glazed, trembling hands holding whatever food they'd grabbed. Rosa was bandaging a scrape on Kyle's leg from when he'd slipped on the play tunnel stairs. Me? I kept staring at the water, because something felt off. The surface of the lake wasn't calm. It was rippling, wrong. Not from the boat's wake, from underneath. Tran noticed too. He adjusted the throttle, slowing the engine to a low hum. "Don't crowd the rails," he said quietly. "Stay central. No lights over the edge." "Why?" Rosa asked. But I already knew. I saw it. A shadow beneath the surface. It moved like a fish, but longer, thicker, more like a giant eel. And it wasn't alone. Dozens of them, all around the boat, pacing us. One bumped the hull, the whole ferry shifted slightly. A girl in a fairy costume yelped and backed away from the railing. Another hit, this one harder, then another. The water splashed up the sides. Someone screamed. Tran raised his voice finally. "Sit down, everyone, now!" We hit the deck just as something latched onto the side of the boat. It sounded like suction cups. When I dared to look, I saw one of them trying to climb. Not quite a fish, not quite a person either. Its skin was stretched, translucent, clinging tight to bones and wires. Yes, wires. Like something had tried to build these things out of leftover parts. The half-human face twisted toward us with lidless eyes and a mouth full of broken teeth. Kyle screamed. Rosa grabbed a fire axe from the emergency kit and swung. The thing dropped back into the water with a splash, but more followed. Tran shoved the throttle forward. The boat surged ahead, but they were fast. They swam alongside us, slapping against the hull, scraping with claws or tools or whatever was stuck to their hands. That's when we heard the song. From the water, Not from speakers, not from radios. A distorted version of Joyland's opening theme, warbling like a broken music box. It's always sunny in Joyland, come and play, and stay all day. Except it wasn't cheerful. It sounded like it was coming from inside the creatures, like the tune had been embedded in them. Then, one made it onto the deck. It was wearing part of a ride operator's vest, soaked and shredded. Its limbs moved like they were jointed wrong, like something had twisted them backward. It snapped its jaws, reached for one of the fairy-costumed girls, and was tackled by Tran. They rolled, struggling, until Rosa buried the fire axe in the thing's back. It shuddered, then stopped moving. Tran sat up slowly, blood dripping from his forehead. "Keep moving," he growled. "Don't stop swinging." We fought them off. Every one that climbed over, we kicked, hit, or shoved back. They weren't smart, but they were relentless. Then, finally, we saw lights. Distant. Faint. A building on the far side of the lake. The evacuation center. Steel gates, armed guards. A bright spotlight that cut through the mist like a sword. When the boat pulled up, the dock crew didn't ask questions. They dragged us ashore and closed the gate behind us so fast I heard the creatures slap against it seconds later. One of the guards turned to us, pale and shaking. "You were inside that place." Tran just nodded. "They sent drones this morning. None came back. No one responded. We were too busy breathing, shaking, crying. We'd made it." But even as we stood there, soaked and silent, I looked back one last time. Toward the water. Something was still watching. The evacuation center was a converted convention hall. Steel-reinforced walls, ceiling-mounted lights that flickered just slightly, and a constant buzz of portable generators. Clean, organized, and quiet. Too quiet. Everyone kept their voices low, like they were afraid something might hear them, even here. We were taken into a separate room for processing. Medics checked for scratches, fevers, anything that might suggest contamination. A few of us were sent to a secondary area for extended observation. I didn't ask why. I didn't want to know. A tall woman in a white coat walked in with a clipboard and a calm, polished voice. "My name is Dr. Levins. I'll be debriefing you one by one. You'll each be given food, clean clothing, and a cot. We'll arrange transport off-site once it's safe." Safe. That word didn't mean anything anymore. When it was my turn, she led me into a private office with no windows. Just a table, 2 chairs, and a camera in the corner. "Name?" I told her. "Occupation?" "Cook," I said. "Food prep. Section C of the main dining court." She wrote it down. "And you were inside Joyland from the beginning of the incident until approximately 4:10 a.m.? I nodded. 12 hours, maybe a little more. She didn't look shocked, just flipped the page. "Did you witness any unusual behaviors before the panic began?" "Yeah," I said. "Staff acting weird. Guests walking in formation. Animatronics that moved without power." She paused, then scribbled something faster. "Did any of the unusual individuals speak?" "Not really, just sounds." And one of them repeated a phrase. "From the park intro." Dr. Levins glanced up. "What phrase?" I hesitated, then said it. "Come and play, and stay all day." Over and over, like it was stuck in them. She didn't react, just made another note. "Did you come into physical contact with any of the altered animatronics?" "Yeah, one attacked us in the jungle zone. Rosa hit it with a fire axe." Dr. Levins paused again. "Did it bleed?" "No, it sparked, like wires inside." She gave a small nod like she expected that answer, then moved on. "Did you see Puffy?" I blinked. You know about Puffy? Answer the question. Yes, at the dock, right before we left. But it wasn't the same Puffy. Something was inside the costume, something bigger. This time, her hand tightened on the pen. Did it attempt to board the ferry? No, just stood there, watching. She looked up. You're absolutely sure it didn't follow? It didn't move, I swear. She stared at me for a long time, then flipped her notebook closed. You'll be placed in Group C for temporary holding. 3 days of monitoring, just in case. After that, you'll be cleared for release. 3 days? She offered a polite smile. Just a precaution. You're lucky to be alive. I stood to leave, but before I reached the door, she added one more thing. The phrase you heard, you're not the only one. Survivors from 3 other sectors reported the same thing. Some said it was being broadcast from the underground speakers. That's impossible, I said. The power grid was damaged. She gave me a strange look. Exactly. I walked back to the cots, my brain running in circles. They were hiding something. More than just containment or cleanup. I'd seen it in her eyes. She knew things. Things the public wouldn't hear about. Later that day, the power flickered again. A man in a hazard suit whispered to one of the guards, and within minutes, our group was moved to a new wing. No explanation. I asked Rosa if she'd noticed anything strange with the food they gave us. She nodded. It's prepackaged, like survival rations, and the barcode's scratched off. We weren't evacuees. We were test subjects. I couldn't sleep that night. The others tossed and turned, murmuring things in their sleep. Kyle kept repeating the same line over and over like a chant. Don't go under, don't go under, don't go under. On the second night, I saw them roll out a covered stretcher. Whoever was on it wasn't moving. One of the guards had bite marks on his glove. By the third night, the lights in our section went out for over an hour. I don't know why, but when they came back, 2 of the cots were empty. No one spoke about it. On the 4th day, they told me I was free to go. Just like that. A car was waiting, and a man in a suit handed me a phone with one number saved. Emergency contact. He told me not to talk to anyone about what I'd seen, that it was being handled, that the park would be restructured and rebranded. But I know better. They didn't clean it up. They just buried it. Rosa vanished 2 weeks later. She never made it home. Kyle's social account went dark the day after mine, and every now and then I get a strange email from an unknown sender. Just a subject line. Come and play. I delete it every time. But the melody's still stuck in my head. And some nights, when the wind howls just right, I can almost hear it again. That faint, broken tune. From speakers that should have been destroyed. From memories that should have been buried. From a place that promised joy, but gave us something else entirely. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support keeps these creepypastas coming. Until next time, stay alert, stay safe, and never ignore the feeling that something is watching.